How do you create something that's different than everyone else? You do it differently than everyone else. Here at Copeland Creative, we specialize in telling captivating stories of wild people, wild things, and wild places. We don't just capture the story, we immerse ourselves in it. We are a diverse, multi-talented media house based in North Georgia, and if you have a story that needs told, we want to help you tell it.
Welcome to the Redneck Tech YouTube channel. We're about to start podcast 192. 192. And we have this YouTube version for you, but also we have an audio-only version for you if you want that. So we're going to roll right into the podcast.
The Redneck Tech Podcast is brought to you by MikesArchery.com. They're a one-stop shop for virtually everything archery, bow hunting, and for your next outdoor adventure. Mike's Archery has been at the top of the archery game for over 50 years, and they want to give listeners of the Redneck Tech Podcast 10% off their entire online store using the code REDNECK10, all one word. Just put the code in before you check out, and your boys will hook you up. The guys at Mike's have always been good to us, and now they can be good to you too. Visit MikesArchery.com and get your gear now.
Right here. Yeah. You want it? Welcome back. Redneck Tech Podcast, episode 192. You've got me and Ryer in the office today, and we are going to be talking about quick turnarounds and edits, which is the name of the game nowadays. It's what we do a lot of. There's positives to it. There's negatives to it. Can't talk. But the world we live in, man, if you can't do quick turnarounds right now, it's hard to stay in business. It's hard to make any money. But I don't know. I don't know what the first. I guess the first question I'd have for you is if you could make up your mind or you had it your way, would you do this quick turnaround content, or would you like to go back to the old TV days, or even some of the network shows now to where they'll shoot everything and then air it at a later date to where you have plenty of time to do it? I mean, I know what I would rather do. I know what you would rather do. But, what are the pros and cons of it, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at. If it was up to us, we would film something, all fall and then release it the next fall. But the world we live in won't allow you to do that anymore. Everybody wants you to shoot it now, get it out now. Time relevance. But at the same time, I guess we kind of do a hybrid of it right now with Bergara. We shoot things like we'll shoot an episode in October, and then episode might not air till December, January, even into February. When did y'all shoot BC? August?
Yeah, we shot the BC trip in I think the middle of August.
And that's
last year of 2023.
Air in February or March, right?
That will that should be coming out
March-ish. That's your next edit to work on, isn't it?
Clay's working on that one right now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yep. But yeah, so I know how much you love quick turnarounds. Tell me about it. Tell me how much you love them.
Yeah, I'm not a big quick turnaround guy. And I think some of it probably is also the nature of most of the edits that I do, because most of the edits I do are the longer ones. And so quick turnarounds can be tough because you just don't have as much time with the footage, and you've got a ton of footage to go through. So I would rather sit with the footage and have it and be able to, especially for
massage it, love it.
Yeah, especially for series content.
Yeah.
I think series content really benefits from the shoot it all and then figure out what you've got and then release it. I think if you're able to shoot an entire hunting season, and then once you're done shooting, then the high points of the season, the low points, the turning points, all of the important things, and then you can go and craft your story arc and episode structure to complement that. And you can set things up that you know are going to happen. You can foreshadow stuff. You can really use all of that knowledge to be able to construct a really satisfying season arc. But if you shoot, edit, release, shoot, edit, release, shoot, edit, release, you don't really get the opportunity to do that because, like, for example, say you had a series where you were following somebody through basically the whole year, right? They'll have these activities that they do throughout the year, hopefully to set them up for success in the hunting season. Well, they might do something and have an encounter with, let's say, a bull when they're scouting. And then later on, if they kill that bull, then you know, hey, we need to spend some time on this encounter when they're scouting so that when they do kill that bull, it's rewarding because you got to see the work that went into it. And then the audience kind of, once you introduce that bull, the audience is like, oh, I saw them before. Or maybe they have a great encounter with a bull, but it doesn't end up, like, they never see him again. He doesn't appear in the hunting season. They never find him again. And so you can go, well, it's a cool encounter, but they don't see him ever again. So do we want to spend time on that encounter, or do we want to gloss over that and get to something that we know will pay off later on?
Yeah.
And I think that's the main advantage of not the quick turnaround stuff. But the disadvantage is that when you do that, all your stuff is a year old. And I think audiences, especially in the hunting space, in the nonfiction genre, want to see things as, like, almost as they're happening, right? Especially with social media being so recent and up to date. I mean, you're seeing what people are doing within minutes a lot of times, you know, like somebody will be on a hunt and they'll glass up a big bull and they'll put that phone scope footage on their story. And so that same day, you know exactly what they're up to.
Yeah.
And so if you know they're filming, you might want to see, like, you want to see that more or less immediately. And so, you know, if you film it all and it comes out a year later, then you kind of lose a little bit of that time relevancy when you don't do a quick turnaround.
Yeah. The quick turnaround thing, the genesis of the quick turnaround is social media and the growth of YouTube. It's became even more popular, and it makes it hard for guys like us, because most quick turnaround things that are on YouTube and even on social media are generally very low production value. They're very real and raw, and, you know, film and follow. There's not a ton of production. There's not a ton of you know, like you said, stories, or, you know, being able to develop characters. Just like, all right, here's what happened. Here you go. You know, they smash smash clips together in a timeline, and that's what you get. And that's honestly, you know, the conversation we've had is, if you put something out on YouTube anymore that has production value, that has music, and that has a rhythm, and has a story arc, people feel like it's fake because they're so used to seeing this GoPro Handycam version of story that they don't trust it if it's done well. And that kills guys like us because we want to do it well. But there is an exception to the rule. Short form can be done with all of those things. But, you know, the one thing that it takes?
Manpower.
And money. Look at Hard Knocks. We've talked about Hard Knocks. We look at Hard Knocks as an example of what we would aspire to be in the hunting space or the outdoor space, and they're putting out top tier produced episodes, from audio to visuals to gameplay to editing to everything in between, and they're doing it week to week. But they have a gigantic team and an HBO budget, and that makes all the difference in the world. And that's what I think that, which this isn't a podcast that I want to get into later because I want to spend a whole time on it, but that gets into what most of the time falls under my purview is when we have a client that comes to us that wants a quick turnaround and they want it to be high production value, but their budget isn't that. It's they want a film and follow YouTube channel show, which we don't want to do. Are we capable of doing 100%? Do we want to do it? No, because that isn't what we enjoy doing. But that's what they've heard what so-and-so's budget is to produce their show, and they feel like they can come to us to do the same show, and it falls under my job to say, you can't do that show for that. And to educate the client, which is, like I said, going to be a whole nother podcast, you have to educate the client or the customer on what it takes to create what we're trying to create, like what we're trying to do with Bergara's boot leather. There's so much time and effort and planning that goes in before we ever get on the airplane to go. And then there's so much time put into the editing room when we get back. Versus if we wanted to film that show like a hunting public, we could send one guy with no plan who just followed Chris around. He brings the footage back. We mash the clips together, trim the dead spots where nothing happens, hit export. It would cost a tenth of what we produce boot leather for. But boot leather is 2 producers flown usually to New Mexico, Colorado, somewhere out west, 5-ish days at least hunting, sometimes more. Then we bring that footage back and we're spending a week, if not 2 weeks sometimes with it to get it to the point to where it's going to ever see the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
We're not comparing apples to apples. And I think that is the education piece that I struggle with when we have someone come to us and want a Bergara's boot leather, but they have the budget for what Hunting Public's doing. And those two things will never, I don't see how they would ever come together. There's nothing wrong with either one of them. I want to put that out there. Like, some people love watching the real and raw Hunting Public style of video. That isn't what I enjoy doing. That's not what I enjoy producing. I know it's not what you enjoy doing or producing. Can we do it? Absolutely. That isn't what we want to do. As my grandmother says, if I had my druthers, we want to do what we're doing with boot leather. We want to take the time to create really good content, to tell really good stories, to put production value, to send 2 camera guys, because it's always better with a 2 than 1, and create a lasting piece that's for a brand that has legs that can live on even after that gun is 10 years old. I mean, there's still a piece there that they can be proud of, and the amount of other content that comes out of it. But I think that right there, and social media. I mean, social media has ruined us, kind of like what you said, is, I see a big buck, I get an iPhone video of a big buck, and later on that evening I happen to kill him. Well, people aren't going to want to wait a year to see that hunt. They want to see it now. Mm-hmm. They want to see the YouTube version of that deer getting shot now. And that right there, that one thing, that one immediacy has led to a drop in production value, a drop in the prices that people can charge or are charging or can charge, because the value to have the immediacy, it's the fast, good, and cheap. You can pick 2 of the 3, and people are picking fast and cheap. They're not ever picking good. And that when they only pick fast and cheap, it makes it really hard for guys like us to either A, get work and sustain work, and then make any money when we're doing it. And I think that is the problem that we're having right now. We talk about this all the time, is we've been a part of some really, medium to high level productions, and that's what we enjoy doing. But when we go out and we talk to people in the marketplace, that's not what they want. They want 100 reels. They want 100 reels. They want, a 10-part YouTube series, and they want 10,000 images, and they want it for $5,000. And it's like, you're going to have to talk to somebody else, bud. Like, that's not, we just can't do that, and for you to hire someone in-house to do it, one person to do all that stuff. Like, I've got 3 people, speaking of anybody listening to the podcast, I've got 3 different companies that have reached out to me because of our podcast and because of our classes that are looking for producers right now, because they want all that stuff and they want it as cheap as they possibly can. They want entry-level guys that can come in and they can do production, photography, editing, product stuff. They want to be able to do it all in-house, but they can pay, a guy 45 grand. They want him to move across the country. And I told all three of them, you're not going to get a guy that can do all that for 45 grand and will move across the country. You're just not going to do it. You have to pay, that person's valuable, even more so now than ever, So I want guys to realize, first of all, their value, and make sure the short form content is something you're proud of, because that's the struggle that we've had, is making sure that what we're putting out is what we're happy with and what we're happy with doing. I mean, me and you've had this conversation how many times? So many times, to where it's like, okay, we've done this. Are we happy with it? Like, is that what we want to do? Is that me and you kind of had a moment on this last boot leather. There's some things I wanted to change about it, and you're like, but if we keep doing that, that's what everybody else is doing. And I love the fact that you push back. Even sometimes I want to punch you in the mouth when you push back. I do, and which I know you will always continue to do that. But like, we have created a template in the outdoor industry over the last 25, 30 years that, hunting shows have been out there, and it's really hard to break that template and really hard to break that mold. And if, we can try some new things, we can do some different things, but the two things, here's my opinion. This is Caleb's opinion. Take it for what it's worth. The two things that are going to break the industry mold in the outdoor space for outdoor content: take value off the kill and get away from film and follow, no production value kind of content. It's got to go back to a story that has a deeper meaning, and the kill's got to lose value. And I don't mean like not having a kill in there, but the kill can't be the only reason people watch it. They don't tune in just because you killed a big deer or a big elk or 10 turkeys. It's got to be something more, whether that's the entertainment value, whether that's the education value, whether that's the production value, whether that's the character that's on screen, whatever the case may be. There's got to be something more valuable than the quick turnaround time, immediacy, and watching something get shot. And I'll be the first to tell you, I've told you this is a conversation we had down there. I like watching a big deer and big elk get shot just as much as anybody, just as much as the next guy. Mm-hmm. But at this point in my life, I've seen enough for 10 lifetimes. So it's like, I want a little more than that. But I also have to, and we've had this conversation too. We also have to remember we are not the target audience of the content that we're creating. And that is something that I struggle with all the time. I struggle with that when I go to buy hunting equipment. I struggle with that when we create content, because the content that we want to consume, we're in the 1%, maybe the 2% that want to see that. And that is a very hard pill for me to swallow. I know it's a very hard pill for you to swallow, because we have aspirations to create things that are different and better than what's out there now. There's very few companies and people that want to pay for it, but we have to take a step back. And that's kind of my argument when we were talking about what some of the changes you want to make is like, we want to change the mold, we want to break the mold, but we also are not the target audience. And I struggle with that. I really have a hard time saying, this is better than this. Why does everybody still want this subpar product? Mm-hmm. And that's really hard for me. Even when I see, that same thing with products. I see people wear things and use things. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, spend the extra $5, $10, $50, $100 or whatever it is to buy the better thing. It's the same thing with the content. It's like, you're watching this throwaway content, this film and follow, this thing that has no story, but yeah, they killed something. Whoop-de-frickin' do. You can do that too with enough money and enough time. It's not hard. I just went on a really long rant. I apologize. I realize I've been talking for a long time.
It's all right. I haven't had to switch cameras. It's been nice.
Oh, God.
Just been sitting over here listening. So all preferences aside, we do end up having to do a lot of short form content.
Well, are you talking about short turnaround? Okay, I was about to say.
I meant short turnaround.
Yes.
So we do some pretty quick turnarounds. I know that we have a internal soft 2-week turnaround for a lot of our stuff. Obviously, that's not on everything. It's kind of on a project-to-project basis. But we try to get things turned around in 2 weeks, and that's for web episodes and things of that nature. Recently, you just got back from doing some content with Dud.
Yeah.
And that's what I really wanted to dive into, because if there's
okay.
somebody who's the king of quick turnarounds and producing a lot of content,
Yeah.
it would be Dud.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about some of the strategies and the approaches that you have when going up there to tackle kind of those mountains of requests
Yeah.
from Dud.
Yeah.
So maybe lay out a little bit about what a content trip like what you just did looks like, and then let's talk a little bit about how you go about managing, shooting, and turning all of those around within the time frame.
Yeah. So Dudley and Knock On Archery are their own beast in a very unique way. Dudley has really figured out what his viewers want. He's figured out what moves the needle for Knock On Archery. He's figured out what he's the best at. And now I've been working with him since 2018, and we've really gotten a relationship on, I know exactly what he wants. I know how he wants it done. And I think, and we've talked about that, the value of getting a client that you get to know and that stays with you, and you know their quirks, you know their ins and outs, you know what they like and don't like. It just makes your life as a producer, editor, whatever, easier. You know, same thing with Chuck, same thing with Dudley. You know, now, you know, we're getting there with Bergara going into year 2. So it's one of those things to where you get this groove and you figure out kind of what they like. And I'll tell you right now, and Dud will tell you this too, is I struggled with him the first year because on the hunt side, he's very much a film and follow. He'll let you produce things if the hunt's slow enough.
Mm-hmm.
If the hunt's not slow, he's not letting you produce it. He's hunting. Like he understands that his followers and his customers want to see him use the products and get it done. I get it. He has been that guy since 2010.
Long time.
You know, so he's not new to the game. But so when I go up there, I'm usually doing, I think the most videos we ever did was this last time I went up there. And usually I go up there for 4 to 6 days, and I go up to his place in Iowa and I stay at his house. We get up in the morning, we kind of create a rough plan, which usually always gets thrown to crap by the end of the day. And then we start filming. Most of the time, his videos can be either one takers, one shot wonders, which those are my favorite because he doesn't really fumble. Some of them will need some B-roll. Some of them will need some, you know, shooting stuff. So they're all different. But like this last time, he wanted me and Joe, mainly Joe, to go through his YouTube, find out what questions he's getting very often, and essentially create an FAQ type video sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that, and I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, but here's the sheet that Joe created. It's really long, but each one of those is different videos. And then we completed, I should have counted this before, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 32, if I counted that right, we completed 32 of them in roughly 4.5 days. And it was, honestly, if I had to guess, probably 5 or 6 solid hours of camera in hand every day. And we would probably knock out 7 to 10 a day, depending on how in-depth they were. Like the last one we did, he's doing a whole new 101 series, which he's already teased it, so nobody's hearing anything new. but it's going to be a 5-parter and it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. So technically 32 videos is really 37 because one of them is a 5-parter.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that he does it, he's so in depth and he knows archery so well. Is he'll look at the question like let me pull one up like practice the perishable was one of them, but I'm gonna like get one of the questions. How to avoid facial pressure, like that's one of the questions that he got. So we did a video on how to avoid facial pressure and some of the things, and literally he looks and he goes, how to avoid facial pressure. All right. And he holds the bow up and says, ready? I'm like, yeah, tell me what we're doing. He goes, talking about how to reduce facial pressure. And I'm like, 3, 2, 1, go. And he just goes. And thank God I took that easy rig with me because otherwise I would have been holding, because he wants you to hand hold because he's moving to the press. He's moving to the shooting machine. He's clipping in. He's drawing back. So like you can't do it on a tripod. So you have to hand hold it. And I almost didn't take it. And I'm so glad I did. I took the easy rig, which I did a video. I think it'll come out pretty quick on shooting in the dojo with the easy rig. And it holds the camera and takes all the weight off of essentially your arms and your shoulders and puts it kind of on your lower back. And man, it was a game changer for that. I'll never go to duds without one again. Mm-hmm. And he would just literally start talking. And what he would do is if he'd ever fumble, he literally just pick up where he fumbled and keep going. And when I'd edit, I'd bring it in and I can see in my timeline, I can see with my waveforms where there was a gap. I can literally go to every gap because he never stops talking. I told him, I was like, if you ever run for office, you'll be the filibuster guy. I was like, you just talk about archery and you'll bust anything you want to filibuster. But there'll be a small gap where I'll just pick him back up. Like we've got this system to where I can see that gap. I'll go in there, I'll cut that gap out. I'll either have my B-roll or I'll hide the cut somehow with a jump cut or something, and then we keep rolling. And, when the videos were 5 minutes to some of them were 20-ish minutes of just straight walkthroughs. Like one of them was getting rid of cam lean or setting your bow up for indoor season after deer season's over. And he just took his target bow. He's like, hey, this bow's been sitting in the corner all year. I've not been using it. Here's what I'm going to look at. He's like, my cam's leaning a little bit. My D-loop's starting to turn because my string is stretched as the bow's been sitting here since I haven't shot it last year. So here, I'm going to go through and show you how I'm going to get my bow ready. And he puts it in the press. He goes through the thing. I'm doing this, putting a turn here. I'm cutting my D-loop off here. And I'm just following him as he's going, just kind of like follow action like we've talked about. And then anytime he would fumble, I would pick up a B-roll shot to cover the fumble, which was rare. I'd cut those out and marry the two clips together, bring them into Premiere, make sure there was no, making sure Premiere wasn't screwing me over. And then I'd set in and out points, and then I'd go in and I would create a vertical with was it right click?
Yeah, the auto reframe timeline.
Auto reframe, which worked 90% of the time. Some of the videos were and this is something I did do too, and I'd made a conscious effort of it. Is I shot a lot of this center frame, and I shot it a little bit wider than I normally would. Mm-hmm. So auto reframe had a little more room to work. Yeah. Which if we probably should do a whole podcast on that eventually one of these days, or that would be a really good reel for you to do again. I know you've done one before, but like really, really in-depth one. But we went through 90% of them, and as long as I didn't get really tight on stuff and there wasn't a lot of motion or movement, like, quick camera movements, it nailed it pretty good. But I told him on a couple of them, I'm like, I don't know if this one's going to work vertically. I'm like, I'm going to let it run through and see what it does. And I was like, and I can move some stuff around, but because there was one, I can't remember what it was. Oh, there was two people talking there on both sides of the frame. I'm like, this one ain't going to work vertically. I was like, it's not going to be able to do what you want to do unless we go in and cut it all up and make it a big pain in the butt. And he's like, it wasn't a big deal. But so that was 32 finished videos, 37 really, and then all cut into vertical. So essentially 68 videos that are going to get him through the next 3 months of being able to schedule, and then he'll fill in gaps on social media, and there'll be questions that come through that he'll pick up that once we get back in. I think he wants me to come back into February, and we'll do it again, kind of go through the whole process, and he'll see how those do, see which ones did well, see which ones didn't do well, and the YouTube will give him all the information he needs, and then it sells products. But in terms of like like how we do it. Like it's just, I really think I just figured out what he liked. Because originally, like I used to try and 2-camera him and add production value, and he just wasn't about that. He's like, he's like, I know what you're trying to do, but, and if it was just the occasional 3, 4, 5 product videos a year, yeah, we'd blow them out. We'd make them really cool, over the top, light them, do all this stuff. Like you did one for him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he only lets me come up there when he's got he's got fancy stuff to do.
Yeah, fancy stuff to do. Yeah, so like
it's like me to come up there to do the quick stuff.
Well, and because he like, because I've done it with him. I wish I knew the number of videos I've done with Dudley. It's in the hundreds, but
more
like,
than that,
we've
hundreds.
We've just, I think it's so valuable though to create that flow with somebody, and that's just what we've gotten, you know. And he knows what to expect from me. I know what to expect from him. And honestly now, and I told him, and I've gotten this way with a couple clients, like me and him are friends now. And I can tell him, like, that sounded really stupid. And he'll be like, yeah, you're probably right. We should do that again. And I think that's important. I think that's important when you have somebody and you can say, hey, you look tired. Are you okay? Like, or that shirt looks stupid. You probably shouldn't wear that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of thing. Whereas some clients, they'll walk in and they'll be wearing something or doing something or saying something or acting some way, and you're like, why do you have a clay mustache right now? You shouldn't do that. That doesn't look good on you. Like whatever that is. But like once you create that connection with somebody and you have that friendship, I think that makes that so much better. But just doing stuff with him, man, it's and hunting with him so much fun, and he's just a nut, man. But when he's there, you're after it. You're getting after it. And then he cooks you an awesome steak and you watch his show with him. I've got him watching Newsroom, by the way.
Oh, really?
I talked about it the whole time we were there, and he's like, I'm going to have to watch this stupid show. He's already halfway through season 2. I'm
really?
Like, yeah, I told him he was going to love it. Butthole.
That's crazy. You always get people on that show.
It's the best show ever. It really is. He's wanting me to watch Dexter, though.
Dexter's good.
Yeah, he told me I got to watch Dexter, so that's next on my list.
Dexter's good. I really like Dexter. So it sounds like if we were going to put this into steps for people, step 1, if you're tasked to create a really short turnaround stuff or a lot of it, either or, they kind of go hand in hand. Usually when it's short turnaround, you've got a lot of stuff to do. The first thing that you probably want to do is really get a good understanding of what the client is looking for and what is achievable and attainable within those bounds, within the bounds of how many you have to do, how much time you have to work, and really define that. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you know exactly what Dudley wants, and you were able to get that way by basically working with him for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't get that. Yeah. You don't get that privilege or luxury. And so you got to do a really good job on the front end of saying, okay, how do you want these to look? Mm-hmm. And that could be a discussion, but it can also be something where you say, hey, send me some examples of like what you want, this videos that are already out in the wild that you want this to look like.
Yeah, examples are very important.
And then your client can send you however many reels or videos. I'm assuming they're reels because that's usually what quick turnaround stuff is these days. But they send you these video examples, and then it's your job as the producer to break those down and understand the elements that are involved in them. And then being able to go to the client or having the discussion real time, say, okay, so this has this B-roll elements, it's got hunt footage, it's got this, that, and the other thing. This video, while it's short, isn't something that we can make 50 of in 2 days.
Yeah, no.
We would have to do this, and then we'd have to spend time and do this, and then we'd have to maybe go to another location and do this. And so having the knowledge of exactly what goes on under the hood will allow you to help really narrow in the expectations and define exactly what it is that you guys are going to do. Because you can take a video like that and go, okay, well, this isn't realistic in 2 days.
Mhm.
This is realistic in a week. Can we do it in a week? And they might say yes, boom, you're good to go. If they're like, no, we really want to do 2 days, or we've only got budget to have you here for 2 days, then you can say, okay, well, we can do this element of it and this element of it, and we can swap this element with this, or get rid of this altogether, and you lose a little bit of X, Y, and Z, but you also lose the time it took to create that.
Mhm.
And basically then you can have a very clear idea of exactly what you need to shoot and how you need to shoot it, so that when you show up, you know exactly in your head what the final product is going to look like. Because if you don't know what the final product is going to look like, there's a lot of time in the shooting and editing process that is, quote unquote, the discovery process, right? You're trying to figure out exactly what it's going to look like, and that takes time, because you may do something and it doesn't work. You may shoot something and you don't use it. You may not shoot something and realize you need it and have to go reshoot it. You may be editing and make something and send it to the client, and they go, oh, I didn't need X, Y, and Z. I just wanted this.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of burnt time. So if you can define a lot of that stuff up front and be really clear with who you're working with, then you can cut out a lot of time.
Mhm.
You know, I think that in a lot of the clients that you've worked with for a long time and have developed a style over time, obviously this isn't, you didn't walk in, sit down, and develop this style in an afternoon, but you have a very good idea of, when you go with Chuck, what Chuck wants and what to shoot, how much of it to shoot, how long the clips need to be, how much interviews you're going to need to cover whatever it is, because you've been doing it so long. And so you come back and have a very condensed library of footage to pull from, because you already know exactly how it's going to go
Mhm.
before you even show up,
Yeah.
which cuts your editing time drastically.
Yeah, and that came with, like what you said with Chuck. Like, I don't even go to give what Chuck wants. I do the way that I want it, because I know Chuck's going to be good with it.
Right.
But that came with years and years of working together,
Sure.
and him trusting me.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows I'm never going to put something out that's going to make him look stupid or make a brand look dumb, or put him in a precarious situation. He knows that, which now Dudley does too, but Dudley's a little more affirmative with how he wants things, and he wants it yesterday.
Yeah.
But what you were saying, I think, that front end communication is crazy important. But just like you were saying, like if you tell the client it's going to take a week, and they say they only have 2 days, well, one of your options is, okay, well, we can probably do most of that in 2 days, but I need to bring another second shooter or a third shooter, or are we going to have time on the back end to edit this, have longer time to edit this on the back end? There's always options to be able to, it's going to add probably budget to the project, but if they only have 2 days and you've got to burn it to the ground in 2 days, and you bring 2 or 3 shooters, one guy who's just doing scenics, one guy who's just doing the night lapses, or one guy who's just doing the interviews while you're out getting the B-roll and somebody else is getting the deer shots, or whatever the case may be. If they only have budget for one person for 2 days, there's only so much you can do in that amount of time. So sometimes, and then we're talking about the difference between a cameraman and a producer again. Sometimes you can only do so much as one person. And that's how it was when I first started freelancing right after I left Sub 7. Is like, I got to the point to where, like, I'm only one guy, I can only do so much. And then, I wanted to hire you, and it's like, okay, well, I've got all this stuff. I also have all this stuff that wants to be done, but I can't do this and this. But if I had Ryer, he could do this and I could do this. And then it got to the point where I was doing this and you were doing this, and we also needed to do this. And it's like, okay, now we have Clay. And then that's how we've continued to grow. And we've got to the point to where we've gotten really good at the short turnaround stuff, even though that's not exactly what we want to do all the time. We've gotten good at it because that's become the expectation. And we've gotten really good at it and having pretty dang good production value associated with it when we have that clear idea and we've done a good job on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
We've also walked into some projects, sometimes it was our fault, sometimes it was the client's fault, where we thought we knew what they wanted. We go in and we produce it, we edit it, and we give it back to them, and they're like, "That's not what we had in mind."
Mm-hmm.
And then me and you look at each other like, "Huh? That's exactly what we talked about." You know, we literally lined this sucker out. I'm thinking of one episode in particular that you had a lot of work on the front end. That was a TV show. We talked about it ad nauseum. You produced it, and then they're like, "I don't see any big deer," and you're like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
That was never in the discussion. No. Like here's the literal outline we laid out. This is to the T, but they didn't like it. So that is also going to happen. You have to be, because
And then your quick turnaround time suffers because
yeah,
you got to go back to the drawing board.
we had to re-edit that show, what, 2 or 3 times pretty much?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing with that is, and this is another thing that just kills me sometimes, and again, it goes back to I'm not the target audience. What we do as a creative and the content we put out, either the shows, the reels, the photos, the whatever, it's so subjective. I've taken photos I thought were awesome, and then someone else will look at them and be like, "Oh, that's a good picture." And I'm like, that is a freaking spectacular picture. You know, and I've watched videos that make Badlands Film Festival and make the podium, and I'm like, what? That was terrible. And then we put something out, and then nobody watches it, or they don't even watch it to pick it in there, I guess is what happened. I don't even know what happened. So it's like, we're not on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
The subjectivity of being a creative, it's really hard sometimes, because you'll spend so much time on a project or a photo or an intro or a reel or a episode, and you'll love it. You'll fall in love with the whole thing. And then somebody will come watch it and be like, it was okay. What? What are you talking about? You know, there's been things that was Chance's job at Sub 7. He was our production manager, and he would literally come in an episode and he would watch it, and he wouldn't say a word. He'd just sit there and watch it, and then he'd go, "I'm bored." And then you'd stop and be like, "Why are you bored?" He's like, "I don't know. Everything was good. Pace was great." Right there when he started talking about that thing, "I'm bored." So it's like, okay, now I, as a producer, as a creative, I have to go, all right, why is he bored? I really liked that. Why is he bored? He's that new set of eyes that came in and watched it, and everything was going great until this one spot. But his subjectivity and my subjectivity were different, you know? So we have to reconcile that. You know, we both do that to each other. We do that with Clay. We go in and we watch things, and you're like, hey, this is really good, but this section feels really flat. Mm-hmm. Why is this section flat? Is it the song choice? Is it the shot choices? Is it, you know, do we need an interview here? Do we need voiceover here? Do we need to ramp this up to bring this down? Like, what is it? And that's kind of the hardest thing, is everything you do, you might love it. Your mama's going to love it no matter what you do. But is the viewer going to love it? And that's the hardest part, is everything's so subjective. Nothing's objective. And just being able to cope with that, because I know I've done stuff that I thought was incredible, and then people watch it and like, oh man, that was pretty good. I was like, no, I want you to like give me a back slap, like that was like I worked hard on that. That ain't how it works. Mm-mm. So that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. Is you work really, really hard on something, you have a really good idea, you get an incredible shot that it took you 47 times to get, and then you watch people watch it, you're like, oh, they're going to light up, and they watch it, and they're like, But they have no idea what went into that.
Right.
That's frustrating to me. Frustrates the crap out of me.
Yeah, I've been working on trying to be better about that personally.
Yeah.
Even, like, with myself.
I'm just letting you edit everything so I don't have to feel that way.
Well, I've been trying to make edits and try to remove myself from them as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's a really fine line, because you have to have ideas and you have to think the ideas are good, right? Because if you don't have ideas and you don't think they're good, then what are you editing?
Yeah.
But you also have to be able to step back and look at it from an outside perspective and go objectively, okay, I liked this, that, and the other thing, but did it work? And then being able to say, it's not working. how can I make it work? What do I need to switch? What do I need to do? Do I need to throw it away? This last or not the last episode, it's still in progress. It won't be out when this is published. I intentionally cut a lot of stuff, knowing that I was gonna throw a lot of it away, and
that's a mind F right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else we could talk about one day.
Yeah, I cut stuff knowing I was going to throw some of it away, but not knowing what I was going to throw away yet.
Yeah.
And I cut it so that I would have a better idea of how that scene works and how it works in the whole. And then as I got through the whole, by the time you get to the end, then you can go, okay, this scene is really weak. This is the one that needs to go. But until you get through the whole, you may not know. And if you make that decision sometimes on the front end, then you may not be able to say, oh, yeah, that was good, I want to keep it in.
Yeah.
Because you didn't cut it, you wrote it off immediately. And like trying to cut things with multiple tracks. Like, I mean, there are some scenes I cut 4 different ways with different music to try to see which one actually worked. There's all kinds of stuff in there. And that's not something that I've done a lot of before. A lot of the times I'm going into an edit and I'm only progressing as I feel like I've finished this section and it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized that that really ties you to it. If you work a section and work a section and work a section and then move on and do the same thing over and over again, by the time you get to the end, it's really tight. It looks really good. But if you have to lose something, you don't want to, because you in your head, this is all like exactly how it should be.
Yeah, you're in love with all of it.
So if you cut without tying yourself to it and just going, I'm just going to cut these to see what works, see what doesn't work, see what kind of vibes I can get out of it. By the end, you'll have some stuff that works. You'll have some stuff that is kind of in the middle, and you'll have some stuff that you don't, that you know that now you don't want. And it makes it a lot easier to throw it out. I mean, how many we threw out? 4 scenes already. And there are maybe 3 other scenes that I immediately right now know that I could lose if I had to. If it was like, hey, it's too long or it's too slow or whatever. And it is tough to cut that way, but I mean, I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you just have to cut.
You think that's maturing as an editor too? Do you think your younger editor self would have been able to part with things that you had worked hard to edit, even though the client says, hey, that whole section between 3:33 and 4:15 needs to go? And you're like, that's my favorite scene.
It's hit or miss. I think it is getting more experienced and doing it for longer. Oh, that switched. I don't know why. Say hi to the camera.
Hi.
And I've been reading a lot of books from
I'm a reader of many leather-bound books.
Yeah. Did you see that book I got from the thrift shop
Yeah,
yesterday?
I did. I saw your post
That's
about
a
it.
photography book from 1939. It's very dense. I will read some of it. I ain't reading that whole thing. It's like
That's going to go on your shelf in your office.
It's as thick as the Bible.
Wow.
And it's got like technical drawings of lenses,
Wow.
which is that's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really need to know all that.
That's a lot for you.
Yeah, that's a lot for me. Also, it's like from 1939, so some of the stuff isn't super crazy relevant now. Cause
They were digital back then, right?
yeah, no, they're not.
Mirrorless.
They have like 7 sections on developing film
Oh, wow.
and like the chemical processes and stuff, which we're not doing that.
No.
I mean, I've thought about it, but not for work, for
Yeah.
like a hobby. But I've been reading a lot of stuff from professional editors at very high levels, people who are editing TV shows and movies and feature-length documentaries and stuff like that. And over and over again, that's one of the things they say. They say in order to be a successful editor, you've got to walk that line between having ideas and defending your ideas, but also intaking other opinions and trying to make those work too.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, in most senses, nobody cares if the editor likes it.
Yeah.
The only person who needs to like it is the audience.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can fully figure out if an audience is going to like it is by showing it to people, figuring out what is working and what is not working when you show it to them.
Yeah.
And then being able to objectively step back and go, okay, well, this thing that I thought was really neat, or this, storyline that I thought was interesting, or this emotion that I thought that I was going to give the audience, they're not getting.
Yeah.
They don't like this. This is not connecting. This
Mhm.
emotion is not selling. And your job as an editor is to figure out how to sell those things.
Yeah.
And I think too, being more like watching other people's edits and being somebody who then needs to like critique the edit and say, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. If I'm not willing to do that on my own work,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be very hypocritical of me to expect other people to do that on their work.
Yeah.
So I have to be very willing to intake the same kind of feedback that I would give to somebody else. So I don't know. I mean, a little bit of it is maturing. I think a little bit of it is, just being more experienced. And I think when you get more experienced, you get more tools under your belt, and you can also see footage from a lot of different angles, and you can understand better, like, it doesn't have to go like that. It can go a different way, or you know that you can solve problems, and it's not just an equation every time. There's
Mhm.
all kinds of different elements,
Yeah.
and everything changes.
Yeah.
And when you change one part of the edit, another part of the edit has to change. But like when you're first starting out, you don't, like, it's hard to see the footage anyway at all,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start to be able to get a feel for the footage. And then as you hopefully mature as an editor, I think you start to develop that tool set where you can start to really play with the footage more. And so then when somebody takes away that scene that you made, it doesn't feel like they've taken away the one thing you thought was going to work.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, okay, well, I like that scene, but
Mhm.
I know I can make another one.
Yeah.
You didn't just like jack the whole thing up.
Yeah. I notice so many more things now. It's like I don't like watching things with people that aren't producers like myself. Like my kids, for instance, we were looking for a new movie for me and my kids to watch yesterday at my parents' house after church. And we've, of course, picked Nacho Libre. And I'm like, the whole movie's center frame. It bothered me so much. It's a stupid, over-the-top comedy, with Jack Black, but the whole movie's center frame. Like, everything in it's center frame. And it bothered me so much. Like, why is everything center frame the whole time? And they would leave these tags on the cuts sometimes that didn't need to be left. Like, sometimes, it's for comedic effect or dramatic effect. And I'm like, I don't know why they did that. Like, it just bothered me. And I couldn't enjoy Nacho freaking Libre. And
Do
then
you think maybe they left the tags on there to make it purposefully awkward? 'Cause
maybe
Nacho Libre is an awkward
maybe
character.
they did, but like, I don't know. It didn't land with me because I'd seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
But like the second time, I was just noticing things that I didn't notice the first time, because the first time I watched it, I was probably in high school or college when I watched it.
Yeah.
But there's a scene, I need to find it in Billions. I've been watching Billions, which is getting better. It's a really good power struggle, but there's a scene, it's happened a couple, I should have wrote it down, but it shows the importance of music so well. Is there's a scene, he's talking to his wife, and they're like in their closet or in their safe or something, and he's going through this really hard time. Like, there's like an indictment coming down or something. And it's like this kind of this somber, emotional music where you're like kind of worried for him. And then his wife says something essentially like, put your big boy pants on, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And the song changes. This song's going, and you hear that song come in over the top of it. And it's like this, all right, it's about to go down song, and like it just changes the whole feel of like I just felt sorry for this guy. Now he's about to go scorched earth, and that's all I had to hear was that song change, and everything about how I felt about this scene. It told me everything I needed to know. I knew exactly what was going to happen when he left that safe or that room or whatever it was. And I like it. And they've done it a couple of times in there and they nail it every time. And I've never noticed a song change hit like it has in that one for me. And it was really good. And then, you know, when I was at Dudley's, we were talking about movies because him and Sharon like are binge watchers like crazy. Like he'll work, and then he'll have dinner, and like 7, him and Sharon will sit down and like watch a movie or a series. And he was talking about how much he liked Oppenheimer. He's like, "You like Oppenheimer?" I was like, "Hated Oppenheimer." He's like, "Why?" And I told him, you know, the scenes that I thought needed to go, and like this didn't make any sense, and this didn't make any sense. And he goes, "Huh? Yeah, you're right. Didn't need anything." And I was like, "I didn't like it at all." He's like, "Well, I mean, it was. I guess it was pretty good. Now that you say all that." I'm like, I was like, it was long for the sake of being long.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not saying, I mean, I love Christopher Nolan, but not my favorite. But, you know, you just notice things and I feel like I can't enjoy things like I used to. Watch Napoleon with him. No, didn't like it. Last 5 movies I've watched have been terrible.
I heard it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
I also heard it was like not historically accurate. So
No.
You had me like if you're going to make a history movie.
You didn't get to see Napoleon be Napoleon either. It was terrible. I don't know. I need a good movie that's out right now. Oh, watch Saltburn. Don't watch Saltburn.
Oh yeah, Cleo and I watched Saltburn.
Dude,
yeah.
I watched it with Dudley and Sharon.
Oh,
and Dudley goes, "What movie did you pick?" And I'm like, "Dude, I heard this was good."
So
it was dark and weird. Holy crap!
Yeah, we watched it, and I knew going into it was going to be weird. I'm not sure.
Weird. I didn't know it was.
I'm not sure I really understood the immensity of weird.
Me either.
But
Dudley called one of the parts.
Did he?
When he drinks out of the tub, he's like, he's about to drink out of the tub. I'm like,
oh
no.
Yeah, I saw it coming. I saw that. I knew that.
Dude, I didn't.
Yeah, I knew.
I was like, oh god.
Yeah. Like as far as I watched it because I had read in that cinematographer magazine, I had read an article from the cinematographer about how they shot it and a lot of the decisions they made, and I was like, I'd like to see it because
it was beautifully done, but
it was shot incredibly well.
Oh god,
like it looked really good. Overall though, yeah, it's a really weird movie. Do not watch with. Like honestly, I think you gotta be 25 really to watch that. Like you gotta you gotta have been around the block.
Dude, that was not R. Whatever's not NC-17 either. Like you need to go whatever's above that.
Yeah, it's got some adult themes.
Jesus Christ, man, dude, when he rips that thing out of her throat at the end.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, that wasn't my. There was one shot that was incredibly weird to me, but we won't talk about that one on the air because we can't.
I know which one you're talking about. But I couldn't. I called it. I knew that guy was the freaking culprit the whole time. I knew what he was trying to do the whole time. I didn't call the very ending, but I knew like he had a motive the whole time, and that he was gonna.
I figured it out. Spoiler! Pretty quick.
I knew he was gonna kill all them people. I knew he was. I had every certainty he was about to kill all them people. I knew it.
Yeah, I
didn't see the reason why. And did not see how weird he was. I figured out he was going to kill everybody before I figured out how weird he was. Yeah, your dog's
Ranger's losing his mind over something. He was howling earlier. But yeah, I mean, Saltburn, I would say it's worth a watch.
I know, dude. I don't.
Because you got to be somebody who's like into, or not into, that's a weird word to use.
We're going to have a talk if you're into
that. No. You got to be somebody who likes, like if you watch Dexter or Hannibal, like shows like that, then you'll be okay with Saltburn. If you don't watch shows that have some pretty intense adult like themology and some very disturbing mental scenes, then don't watch Saltburn. as far as like how it was shot and how they edited it to make it
I'd look over
as
at Doug.
uncomfortable.
I'd look over at Doug. He'd be sitting there with the mouth open, going, "Oh." He's like, "Why did you pick this movie?" I'm like, "I don't know."
What's crazy about it is, as horrifying as it is that horrifying because of how they shot and edited it. Like, they shot and edited it perfect to elicit that feeling. Like, I got done watching the movie, and I looked over at Clay. I was like, I need to go shower.
Yeah.
And we need to watch Step Brothers or something.
Yes.
Because
Dude,
I feel dirty.
That's exactly what we said. We're like, all right, comedy next.
Yeah,
we need a good Ted 2 after this.
I felt dirty
Oh,
after having. I was like, was I a part of that? I feel gross,
dude.
But that's they
I meant to
entirely pull you
call
into that.
Yeah.
Through their editing choices and how they shoot things, and
They cast a great dude for that too, because you can
Mhm.
tell that guy's unstable, big time unstable. Lord have mercy.
yeah.
And
I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because it was so good at being
but
horrifically horrifying.
yeah, well, one thing that they never explained, I know that I think they called him sir. I'm assuming he was like royalty, but where did dude get the money to buy that house? First and foremost, like that wasn't a house.
I don't
That
think.
wasn't a mansion. That wasn't a castle. That thing was enormous.
I think it's just one of them old money. It's just old money.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't want to throw any more spoilers. I'll ask you these questions afterwards. But I had so many
I'm
questions.
trying to think.
I had so many questions after that movie was over. I'm like, but how's he gonna afford to pay for that whole? Like, there's staff.
I don't think he has to worry about that.
We probably
I think
killed them all.
No. I mean, like, he's got all their money.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, she did sign it all. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's
right.
got like, I mean, I think at that level, you're looking at aristocracy, like people who have had money since the English still were the rulers of the world.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a. Hold on, let me go through my.
I'm trying to think. I watched something else.
I've got Letterboxd, and so I review everything I watch.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
What's Letterbox?
It's like it's this app, and it like has a bunch of movies, and
Oh, I didn't
so
know that.
you can go, like, you can go look at reviews and you can look up movies, but you can also log when you watched it and rate your movies, and you can make movie lists of like your top movies and all this kind of stuff.
Dude, why is mine just now finding out about this? Is this one?
And
Yeah,
you
this
can-
one right here.
You can also, like, people make lists, so sometimes I want to watch a documentary, so I'll like search documentaries on Netflix, and there's like a list that has every documentary on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
and then I filter them by like audience rating,
Mm-hmm.
and then look through them and go, okay, I like that one. Like, we watched one
But it's
the
not
other.
Rotten Tomatoes, is it? Because
no.
Rotten Tomatoes, like, you'll see some of their ratings for some of the
No.
movies that come out, and they're like rating them so low, and then the audience score is like 90s.
Honestly, I mean, you got to keep in mind that when you have an app called Letterboxd and it's specifically for rating movies, like, the audience of people who use the app are people who like movies.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not really, like, you're not going to get the general audience score, because the general audience score isn't rating their movies on an app.
I'm signing up for this right now.
I'm trying to think. I'm going to go here and see what I've watched lately and see if I could.
Because I need a good movie in my life, because I haven't seen a good one in a minute.
You could watch The Beekeeper with
Beekeeper?
Jason Statham. It's in theaters right now, or it was. Things go out of theaters so fast. It's basically Jason Statham just murking people.
And it's called The Beekeeper?
Yeah, there's a storyline behind it. I would say that overall, you go to that movie because you just want to watch action. The storyline is kind of a little shoddy. They don't explain some stuff. One of the characters I wanted to punch in the face the whole time because I just hated the character. But, like, as far as Jason Statham just kicking butt,
Yeah.
it's fun. You know, it's like a callback to the old action movies where it's just action for the sake of it.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Oh, I watched Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, last night. It's the first time I've seen it.
What?
Yeah. Watched it last night.
Yeah. So it's asking me some movies I've seen. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
talking about Get Out. I'm like, no, I'm not watching that. I
Yeah.
don't watch scary movies. Oppenheimer, 1 star.
Yeah, I gotta say, I didn't love it.
What?
I didn't love Episode 1 of Star Wars.
How not?
It was really cheesy.
Well, it was made like when, in the 80s?
I don't know. And I tried to put that past me. Like just some story stuff. It was okay. I'm still going to watch the other ones, but I didn't love that one right off the bat.
Dude, so I finally watched Dune.
Was it very boring?
No, it just ended like in a very weird place, which
Well,
I know
they're supposed to-
I know they're coming
yeah.
out with the second one, because when it ended, I'm like, what? Like we're just now getting into the story. So that made sense. Which I'm currently rating these things right now. Saltburn.
Iron Claw was very good. It's incredibly depressing,
That's what.
but it's very good. It's
You told me about that.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's
you
really
told me
good.
that one.
Uh,
See, I'm not.
Prometheus.
What's Prometheus?
It's
Have you seen the new
it's
one?
alien
Have
movie.
you seen the new one? Holy crap, we've been talking an hour. The new Godzilla -1 or whatever.
No.
I heard it's really good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
I couldn't convince Cleo to go to that one with me. She doesn't
Of
like
course
Godzilla
you
movies.
couldn't. Forrest Gump, 5 stars. 7, 5 stars.
Anyways, I'll have to figure out a good movie for you to watch.
Django.
You know what wasn't interesting? I watched a documentary called My Kid Could Paint That. It's a documentary from the early 2000s. It
Mhm.
was, so the reason I watched it was because I'm reading a book, that documentary book.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, it has 4 documentaries with like a breakdown of the documentaries. And that
Yeah.
was one of the documentaries I wanted you to watch. And actually, it was a really good documentary. And it didn't look good because it was shot on a video camera in like the 2000s.
Oh, really?
So like you can tell that it was a video camera.
yeah.
Like it just doesn't look good. But
Mm.
story-wise, it was really good. It's about a
So you could look past the fact that it was shot
Yeah,
terribly
yeah.
and still.
So it was basically about there's this 4-year-old girl who like painted, right? Her dad was an amateur painter just for fun, and one day she asked if she could paint, and then he gives her a canvas and stuff like that, and just she paints, and some like dude sees the painting and is like, holy crap, that's really good. One thing leads to another. She's selling the family is selling her paintings for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars at art shows.
Nice.
And so it's about that. And then there's a bunch of stuff that happens in there that was fascinating. And like the documentary producer set out to make a documentary that was a critique of modern art. Because like the paintings she made, I mean, as a 4-year-old, the paintings she made were basically modern art. That abstract kind of like, you don't really know
They
what it
look
is.
like they were done by a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Nice.
But he set out to be, because people are like, well, why did I buy that for $1 million? My kid could paint that. Okay, well, here's a 4-year-old who's painting it and selling it for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and so, or tens of thousands of dollars. And so he started out wanting to like explore that.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the documentary, things happen, and there ends up being like another facet to it that he has to like kind of explore and come to grips with as the documentary maker. And it was really good. I watched that Sunday and I really enjoyed it. And it's not something that I would have like picked out to watch. I watched another one called The Shirkers.
I never heard of that one.
It was about, gosh darn it, I'm gonna forget the name of the country, but essentially like an Asian island country. I forget what country it was now, and that's bad. But essentially this like 16 to 18-year-old girl like wants to make this movie, and so she like enlists the help of all of her friends, does all this pre-production work, shops it around, does the whole 9 yards, and goes to make this basically indie film that's incredibly weird, like super weird stuff.
Weird as Saltburn.
No, like weird, like indie film weird,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I can't really explain it because it's like it's just odd.
Yeah.
thing, but she goes and goes to make all of this, and the dude who was the professor of the film school that she was studying under and that was helping her make this just disappeared with all the footage. And then the documentary was about her kind of like talking about the whole process and then going to try to find the footage and stuff like that. And then that whole process. And it was a pretty good documentary. And stylistically, it was very interesting.
Well, I think we about covered all the short turnaround stuff for now. Y'all got any questions, reach out to us at Redneck Tech Podcast or rednecktechpodcast@gmail.com. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. Peace.